I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Is there any council member that would like to lead us in an invocation? Or would the town manager like to, or director of operations? Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, help us to find encouragement in your word and provide us with the wisdom to make the right decisions for the town. Show us the way as you have chosen us to be here. Give us direction and let us not think with our own selfish interests. I would ask for a special prayer for our public safety personnel. Please wrap your arms around those who put their lives on the line every day. Keep them safe and provide them with strength and encouragement as they continue to protect and serve their communities. We ask in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Adoption of the order of the business of the day. We have a tentative agenda in front of us. Does anyone have any amendments, additions, subtractions to that? All right, hearing none, we'll just proceed off the tentative agenda. Minutes, June 13th, 2023.
I think you missed roll call.
Oh, I did. Good job. Me. Can we do a roll call, please, Deb? Sorry.
Yeah, I just put everybody's here. Laura Fleury. Here. Brad Godecker.
Yeah, here.
David Hawkins.
Here.
Richard Hill.
Here.
Joe Saylor.
Here.
All present.
All right. My apologies. Minutes, June 13th, 2023. Anyone have any questions, additions, anything on that? All right. Hearing none, I'll call for any motions.
Move to accept.
Is there a second?
I'll second the minutes.
All right. Thank you. Let's vote by acclamation, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All
All
right.
those opposed? All right. Motion carries unanimously. Voucher packet, July 11th, 2023. Any questions or concerns on that? Hearing none, is there a motion regarding voucher packet, July 11th, 2023?
I'll make a motion to approve voucher packet July 11th, 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Vote by acclamation, please. All those in favor of approving vouchers 7/11/23, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Financials, please, Deb.
If you look at your fund report, you notice revenue in the general fund, $568,000, which was our property tax settlement, is now posted. So general fund balances as of 6/30 was $502,459.66. Water operating balance is $401.124, down slightly from the beginning of the year. Sewer operating is $301,960, so it's catching up now. Fire general, you can see that they got their property taxes also. And we're slowly spending the general obligation bond funds according to how we divided it up. So,
Can I just ask about the debt service under, it would be under the fund report, second to last page, bank number 12.
the balance there, I was curious what that represents.
The debt service that's not actually the balance. If you notice at the beginning of the year, it's 565 because we actually got 640,000 after paying fees. But 75,000 was spent in December, so they made me delete that transaction so that the books were right as far as what was in the bank on January, which was 565,000.
Oh, okay, makes
So
sense.
I had to transfer and then receipt. So, yeah, that won't be that later.
Okay, thank you. Anything else on financials? All right, we'll move on to, looks like Crossroads Engineers is here to talk to us about potential center line, Whiteland Road.
I'll do a quick introduction. Brent Newport, engineer, is here to speak about the potential roundabout at Whiteland Road and Centerline Road, which we've been talking about for a few years now. So Crossroads put together a conceptual along with a budget of what they expect that this would cost. We are actually working on a partnership with New Whiteland and also Johnson County to help fund this project. And so Dwayne McCausland's here tonight from New Whiteland just to show their support. Slim and I did go to their town council meeting last week just to kind of introduce this potential project. We're looking at an Indy NPO, it's called CMAQ funding, which is an air quality project that would be funded through the Indy NPO. As our application is due this October, the funding wouldn't be until 26, fiscal year 26, so we still have some time. So tonight, no action, formal action, but we would, after Trent kind of provides you with his summary and presentation, would like the go-ahead to continue working with New Whiteland and Johnson County Highway Department as we would put together like an interlocal agreement on who's going to do what and the cost sharing. I'll let Trent continue.
That'd be awesome.
Good evening, Trent Newport with Crossroads Engineers. I was here recently to talk about this roundabout. Actually, the first time I looked at this roundabout, I think was for Dennis when he was town manager here. So it's been quite a while. It's been something that's looked at off and on for several years. And so it may not have the traffic that, Whiteland and Graham has on a daily basis, but it's one of those intersections that's a four-way stop that it gets really busy during the morning commute, during the evening commute, sometimes in between. So other roundabouts in the county that are similar in size of what this would be, like Fairview and Morgantown, which is the first one up in Johnson County. We did one recently in Fairview and Peterman. It's a little bit smaller than what this would be. It'd be able to hold truck traffic, but it wouldn't be designed for the volume that you see at Whiteland Road, for instance, Whiteland Graham. So this exhibit we prepared is, again, it's kind of centered on the intersection. The red cross in the middle is the center, and so you can see it's kind of to the north and to the west, and to try to minimize the impacts to
Crossroads, you didn't get Crossroads?
No.
One sec, sir, I'm sorry, we don't have the exhibit you were talking about.
We'll make a copy of it.
We can-
That's right there.
Everybody's going.
You just have to share.
Just go ahead. Esther.
We can share this one if you guys want to try to share over that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You can see, I'll go from memory. So you can see that the center of it's kind of north and to the west. That's to try to avoid a larger impact to the one house that's in the northeast corner. That little green strip is removing a drive there. They have a second drive so that you don't have a drive coming right out into the intersection. But the other thing that's kind of forcing the hand there is that there are some utilities that are in easements. If utilities are in easements and they're forced to move, you have to pay them to move. One of those is a large pipeline, and so it's expensive, so we're trying to avoid that. With Carmen's help, we actually set up meetings with all the utilities in the intersection over the past couple months to meet them, talk about avoiding impacts to them, talk about where they were and how we could do that. So actually, there's 3 power companies in that intersection. Duke's there, Bargersville Electric's there, and Johnson County RMC is there. So working with all those, that's what also kind of pushes that thing to that location. Otherwise, you might look at that and say, why don't you shove it to the south or to the west completely away? There are some other reasons you don't want to do that, but those are the main ones. So there would be some right-of-way takes in those corners, as typical for a roundabout, especially in a county road scenario where there's not a lot of platted land. The southeast corner and the northeast corner are platted, so less right-of-way. Actually, the southwest is as well, but the northwest is a farm. The next couple sheets is the cost estimate. So what we've done is a lot of data that we have on doing a lot of these. We put together a cost estimate of the items. These are without full design, but it's still with our amount of these that we've done, we feel pretty confident with these. We do add in some contingency, and then we add in inflation. That inflation for a number of years is because even though you might get funded this fall or this next spring, you're not building it, as she said, for 3 more years, because that's the way the MPO funding is. And then the other fees in that bottom box are your design fee, the constructions from above, the construction inspection, right-of-way cost, and then reimbursable utilities. Again, I think we're going to try to avoid those, but I put in some numbers in case we have to move some poles and so forth that would be paid for. So you're right around just under $2 million for the cost. Now, if you go through the MPO and get funded, they fund their projects 80-20 for construction and for inspection. So the larger numbers in there, that's 1.446, that would be funded 80% through that program, and 20% of it would be a local match. I don't know if they have these other numbers as well, but okay. I did give a kind of a split, and so basically you would have so each municipality, if it were split 3 ways, it'd be about $250,000 for the entire project. So out of a $2 million project, there's about $750 that you have to pay, or some local agency has to pay with the elements that we had here, but if it's split 3 ways. And that money comes out as you go. So some of it would come out as you start design next year in 2024, but then the big hit that you would have would be when it goes to bid in, say, 2026, and you have to pay that 20% amount right when you get the bids in. So it is a money that's spread out over several years, and I actually gave Carmen that. We promised that when we went to New Whiteland and presented to them, and so after that I sent it to her, and I think she's sent that around, but that kind of shows you what your cost spread would be. This is all if you get it funded. As Carmen said, they do their submittals, they're due by October. They would have to have letters from each of the councils saying we have the money for this and we commit to it. That's part of that submittal, and then you would hear on the results by the end of the year. Then it goes through a program to just get it all the money actually allotted, which is sometime in the spring, and that's when you can start doing design on the project so that you can go get your right-of-way parcels and so forth. And that's that process that takes a couple of years before construction. The construction of this roundabout would be probably a 60-day closure. If you could do a closure, it might be longer, but typically we try to do that, rip off the Band-Aid, get it done. It's a lot safer, it's a better product. And we try to do it over the summer months in areas that are affected by school traffic. And the school window is less than 60 days these days, but we've been able to do that. We're doing one right now on the Saddle Club and the Stones Crossing for the county. We shut down right after Center Grove shut down, and we're going to be back open before they're back open right at the 1st of August. So be happy to answer any questions. I know there's a lot of information there, but I do think it's a very viable project. If you look at some of those roundabouts that have been put in your area here where you have four-way stops, you really do see a lot of benefits of moving traffic and safety as well.
Sir, I have a question. This would be big enough to have semi-tractor trailers, just in case they went through, that it wouldn't be tight or anything like that?
Yeah, so if you look at that picture, there's a gray kind of band around the inside part of it. That's a concrete apron. So you probably see that in all the roundabouts that you go. If you go to Whiteland and Grand, you'll see that it's got that band, but then you see the semis don't drive on it when they go around, unless they're new drivers, maybe. But we designed that one that way. We designed it because we knew that there was going to be a lot of trucks, and you guys in this community would hear them complaining about having to drive that truck apron. On a roundabout that's in an area that doesn't get as many trucks, they're less frequent, and we are going to force them to use that apron. So their back tires, the front tires don't go on it. They go out towards the outer curves. The back tires follow behind and do get up on that apron. We even transition that curve to be less steep. It's a roll curve. It's about 3 inches in height. But the idea is for cars, for normal everyday traffic, we want them not to use that apron. We want them to force them to slow down, go around versus a straight through shot. And so something that's uncomfortable, something that might spill your coffee, if you're in a car. But we also want to make sure that trucks can get through without tearing things up. And the critical turn for them, obviously, is a left turn or a U-turn. You're probably not going to have a lot of trucks U-turning there, but you definitely could have some left turns. And we would run truck routes on that and so forth to make sure they can make it.
Would that also be lit up a little bit?
We would have lights around it.
Lights around it or something?
You noticed in the budget that it's got some lighting. I want to say there might be about 6 or 8 lights.
8, okay,
so
lighting foundation, okay.
Yeah, so we light the entry points for sure. So there's 4 there, and then we come out and light a little bit wider out. So, and then we also put a budget in for some landscaping in the center. If you see that's in the budget, it could be something similar to what you guys did here. That is a kind of an entry into the town, so it could be some kind of an entry monument. It could be just landscaping, or there's lots of different things. There's some restrictions around the truck apron, but other than that, we actually want stuff in the roundabout to go up. We want to block the view through. If you think about coming under a roundabout, if you can't see in the directions, then you will slow down. And so if you can see in all directions and you see no cars are coming, what are you going to do? You're going to try to go through it as fast as you can. So we actually do want to block the vision through a roundabout. So it's a little bit different than what people think,
Thank you, sir.
I have a question as well. So on the road edge along all the sides, there's, like a gray line. Is that like an additional shoulder? You can, fine.
Here, you can have that one.
I'm just trying to remember. So around the edge is just a curb line. So this does not have any walks or paths around it. That could be something that could be added, and I think within the contingency numbers could even fit into the cost. And so a lot of times we'll go ahead and put, crossings in and ramps and walks all the way around in case you want to connect to them, then you'll have to do that later. So that'd be a design decision once you got into it. But what you're seeing there is it's just showing the curb.
Okay, the reason I ask is that intersection is relatively narrow, and the road, especially center line moving south, is elevated with little to no shoulder whatsoever. There's consistently cars that fall off the road or what have you.
Yeah, a lot of that would be fixed as far as at the intersection. Obviously, once you tie back in, it's what it is until you do something with the road going away from there. But the road will feel much wider at the intersection than what it is today. 12-foot lanes, at least 11-foot lanes, curbs, and so like I said, if you drive any of the roundabouts that are in those rural areas and kind of pay attention to that, you'll see it give you that same kind of a feel. So we would put curb. This is one where we don't anticipate a lot of storm sewer, underground storm sewer, because we don't have a lot of place to take it there. It's all pretty flat. goes out in ditches. So what we will do is put the curbs in, but then they'll put curb turnouts just to get those back to the ditches as they go away from the project. So we did do a little bit of a preliminary look at drainage. There's a little bit of drainage in the northeast corner in that yard that we'll need to handle. There is a storm sewer there that comes from the north. So we would kind of get all that fine tuned in design.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Carmen, you were wanting us to authorize a go-ahead to continue basically seeking funding and design on the project, is that correct?
Yes, and then we'll work with Stephen and Lord Patel and the other legal counsels to this local agreement to meet later this month with the Johnson County Highway Department, just to make sure that they're on board financially, verbally, an actual interlocal agreement, and then kind of get into the truly coming back and asking for that support.
Thank you. Watts?
Do we need to give like approval tonight to do?
Well, it sounds like just to, not to do it, but to proceed.
proceed
to
with the-
continue on. I personally love the idea. That backs up
It's definitely
terribly
needed.
at this stage. And if we can do it at that type of cost sharing, I think that's a really good outcome for the town. I don't know how everybody else feels.
I concur.
I agree.
Okay.
I'm glad to hear we're making progress, and we've got representatives from New Whiteland here and everything. That's fantastic. So thank you for coming.
Yes, thank you, sir.
No comments from me.
All right, is there a motion to authorize the town manager to proceed with trying to secure funding and continuing to work with the other municipalities on this?
So moved.
All right, I'll take Dave's motion, Brad second, if that's all right?
Yes, thanks, Dave.
All right, vote by acclamation, please. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right. Next issue on the agenda is ordinance 2023-02, the chicken ordinance, which I think we're on the sixth iteration of roughly. So on my read of our packet, we have a red line version, which is the version we considered in June, and which we approved for a second reading tonight, basically. We have what's marked as a red line version, which is a version that legal counsel generated some proposed amendments by Mr. Hill. And then there's a third version with a red line and it looks like comments and edits, which is some additional amendments that Mr. Hill wanted the council to consider. Am I?
Now, let me clarify, the second
Okay.
version that you referred to, at the last council meeting, I was directed to review the staff report with the planning commission and make sure that all of the items in that staff report were incorporated into the proposed ordinance, which is what that reflects.
Okay, so we have what we considered last time, we have with staff report edits, and we have with Mr. Hill's proposed edits. Do I have that right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, so as of right now, what we have in front of us is what we considered last time. And so, I'll open the floor to, discussion, suggestions, motions, whatever comes to mind.
I'll go ahead and start. I took the liberty to kind of go through this and Joe, I called you to see if you had a chance to kind of look at it and called Dave and see if he had a chance to look at it. And I kind of went through it, and then Dave and I compared notes, and then I sent it to, well, I actually talked to Mr. Watson about a couple of things. And he was, seemed to be open-minded about some of the changes that I was suggesting, and then I sent the document to him, and it looks like everything that I was concerned with is in the document. Carmen's comments are in the document.
So I've read through it, fairly quickly. If I'm understanding correctly, it's raising the fence height from 4 to 6 feet. It's raising the square footage to 80 square feet or 7 feet in height as far as the coop.
It actually reduced it.
Okay.
It was 120. I went like 4
Okay.
different iterations on that, so.
Oh, okay, I see. There can be no more than 8 square feet maximum per hen. A run in the, of space in the run. So there's a minimum and a maximum now in the run.
Correct.
350 feet from neighboring property line, and that's not just a residence, that's any property line. There's some waste disposal stuff. It keeps the, I think we started out at 200 feet, property owners, but this is 660. I think
That
that's
matches.
previously, that was previously in the staff report, right?
Yeah, matches the BZA requirements and notification.
And then, it adds some additional State Board of Health poultry entry requirement. And then it doubles the potential fines for violations. Is that an accurate summary?
Pretty much.
Okay. Well, I think before we consider this, we probably need a motion to adopt these amendments. Is, I think, the procedurally correct way to do it.
Right.
So if someone's gonna make a motion to adopt these amendments, then we consider them and discuss them.
So how does that work? I mean, yeah, trying to go, balance this. And so like, I guess one of my concerns is that will make it so restrictive that it'll be impossible for someone. I mean, it'll be a de facto vote of no. And so, I mean, I guess that's my concern.
Well, real quick, before we do that, before we consider this, I think there needs to be a motion. This isn't the draft that we have in front of us, so if someone wants to make a motion to amend, to add your changes, and that can be you, then I think at that point we would discuss them.
I mean, those are just my suggestions. I mean, not necessarily.
Discuss it without,
Well, typically, the procedure is if someone wants to amend an ordinance that's before the council, the motion is made to amend it, and then the council discusses whether or not it wants to proceed in that fashion. We don't have to do it that way. If the council would prefer to just discuss it without a motion, I'm fine to.
I would like to discuss it without a motion, because then it's just like a straight up or down.
Okay.
And so, I mean, if we can,
Let's do it that way. We'll just open the floor to consideration of the amendments that Mr. Hill had proposed as reflected in that document. Sorry, Mr. Godek, go ahead.
okay, pardon me. So, yeah, I mean, I guess, what I was trying to get at was, I appreciate the level of detail and everything else that you brought up here. So like, I'm just kind of trying to look and see. And so I guess I am concerned that I don't want to make this so restrictive that it's not possible, or it's virtually impossible for someone that wants to, utilize their ground to have a small flock of chickens to allow them. And so, I mean, I guess like I'm just trying to like look through here real quickly and see if that's the case or not.
I don't know that it's really restrictive. I think some things were tweaked. For instance, like being proposed is like 6 chickens. So doing my research and reading, I mean, we had a 10 by 12 mini barn that was 10 foot tall, basically. I mean, that's pretty big coop, you might say. So I took it from 120 down to 80. So basically it's an 8 by 10 by 7 foot, which would give somebody still access to get in and clean and tidy up and do whatever they do with chickens. I thought 120 square feet was a little too big.
And so I have no idea. So you'll have to excuse me for asking whether, what would be customary in this. And so did you just kind of like, hey, I think this is smaller, or like, there's, I mean, I would imagine that there's an entire industry of building coops and you give so many square feet per animal and so on and so forth.
Technically, 80 square feet for 6 chickens is more than adequate from what I read.
Okay, yeah, so like, I.
They recommend, sorry, but they recommend 3 square feet per chicken. And this actually gives them about 6, going to 80 square feet.
So there, I mean, there was some flexibility and, you know, in trying to modify some of these things. I know like on the, on having a coop and having like a landscape barrier or something like that.
Okay.
You know, potentially a landscape, and then if you're gonna have a fence, I mean, which it says fence, standard height of a fence, a privacy fence is 6 foot. So I just use kind of common sense and put 6 foot in there.
But does that not effectively require any person that wants to have chickens to have installed a 6-foot privacy fence?
Doesn't necessarily have to be a privacy fence, but.
It could be like a
It has to be a
hedge or a
fence,
shrub
yeah.
or
No,
something
but
like
I mean, what I'm saying is that it sounds, a lot of this stuff is getting to be where we're gonna be, you know, there's relatively few portions of the town that don't have a homeowners association or don't have restrictive covenants that would, that people would be able to have these without running afoul of their HOA or their covenants. And the portions of town that are not in those are the older portions of town typically. And the older portions of town are typically inhabited by people who probably don't have $5,000 sitting around to toss up a 6-foot privacy fence. And then to, you know, have to be obscured from 6 feet above grade, and then to have architectural standards on their coop and so on and so forth. So I'm struggling with this insofar as that the incidental costs of having 6 chickens are going to require you to have thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars worth of disposable income in order to comply with this, because the vast majority of the property in the town that you'd be able to do it in, it's not Bronner Ridge.
If you have a dog and you have to put up a fence and you have a reasonably sized backyard, what's it gonna cost you to put up that backyard fence?
Well, we
Even
don't
just
require
in a
you to
chain
have
link.
But we don't require you to have a fence for your dog.
But you do that for protection of your pets and that. So what's the difference in paying what you're paying to protect your pets and to have a chicken coop?
I guess the big difference to me is that in that instance, you're paying for something that you want, to protect something that you want. And in this case, it's the government telling you that you have to. Those are fundamentally different things.
Hey, Joe, just for clarification, some of these things were in the original month and a half, 2 months ago is what was, I didn't add any of this.
No, I understand.
I mean, I just tweaked the
No.
fence size.
But,
So all that
well-
other language is already in there months ago.
No, it was in there as of last meeting. Last meeting was when we put it in there. But I mean, and if you're gonna go 50 feet from any residence on a neighboring property, you also exclude almost every parcel in the town that could have this, that doesn't have an HOA or doesn't have restrictive covenants. Yeah, I mean, I have this is giving almost no one the ability to, simply geographically.
Well, I mean, in all due respect, I mean, everybody has the opportunity to redline and spend some time on this. So, I mean, did anybody else bring any suggestions to the table?
Well, I did, but we're considering yours at the moment.
It looks like it was changed from 200 feet of the property regarding getting neighbors to 660. Is that based on other?
That's because BZA requires 660 feet.
The BZA, when you do the notification, I was just trying to keep it
Okay, I was,
matching from the front of the document to the back of the document.
and that's something that the BZA would
Oh, no.
need to,
No, that's just the standard that we use in the BZA to get a variance.
okay.
Um,
I'm just thinking.
Can I address that?
Houses are.
Yeah.
my interpretation of the effect of this change to move the 200 feet to 660, you already had a requirement from a standpoint of notice. That's 660 feet. And that's standard for sending out a notice and giving people the opportunity to, give their 2 cents. What the change in the 200 feet is, or does, is it gives effectively a property owner that is, say, 300 feet away, a veto power, because the way number 15 is worded, no property owner or resident of property located within 200 feet of the property has objection to the proposed keeping and raising of chickens, et cetera. So basically it says it's supposed to be given a permit if no one within 200 feet has objected. The converse would apply. If someone within 200 feet has objected, they're not supposed to give a permit unless it goes further through, I think, on a BZA appeal process. So what this does is it gives an opportunity for property owners further away to raise an objection and therefore trigger it having to go to the BZA and not allowing a permit. That's the effect of that.
And that's what follows, like what David was saying, not only BZA, but Plan Commission, public hearing notices. It follows that it's either 2 property owners deep or 660 feet. So that's where it's listed elsewhere in the ordinance, but it was missed at this point as far as the application process.
It just makes those consistent with one another is what it does.
Okay, so let me ask this, Stephen, if we were to go back to the original, then at that point you have to give notice at 660, but you don't trigger a BZA meeting unless it's a adjacent resident within 200 feet, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So can I ask what, why we would add that triggering of a BZA meeting from a non-adjacent property owner who is up to 1/10 of a mile away?
I feel like it affects Melissa sitting back there or Slim sitting there. If they can smell it, if they can see it, and they're not happy with it, more than anything, probably the smell.
Well,
If you have any kind of livestock, I don't care what it is, you're going to have a smell.
Well, we have, I mean, we've also added some really specific, really detailed language about that, including how you have to dispose of it, and that odors from any chicken or chicken waste must not be discernible at any property line. So if it can't be discerned by your immediate neighbors, why are we giving I mean, that's the term that's in here. Why are we then requiring the next neighbor over to be worried about something that we've already prohibited for the adjacent neighbor?
Joe, that language is originally in there, again, 2-3 months ago.
Okay.
I didn't touch it.
No, I'm not suggesting that you did, but we're kind of going through this edit, and this looks to me like an ordinance that will not allow anyone to have chickens. And if you do have the money and you did happen to live on a parcel that wasn't HOA regulated, then someone 1/8 to 1/10 of a mile away can veto it, even though by law you aren't allowed to let the smell reach their property. I mean, I don't know. The numbers in this are such that it just looks to me like we're just gonna say, yeah, you can have chickens, but nobody can actually have chickens.
Well, I'm going to go right back to the same thing. If you want to have chickens, move out of town. Nobody around us has allowed chickens to come into their towns. And I think it's ridiculous still that we've gotten as far as we have with it.
Well, Greenwood had them up until they passed their UDO 3 years ago. Bargersville currently has them.
Bargersville voted it down. They do not.
I believe they have it. They've just imposed a $500 permit fee because they went the same route that this
No,
went.
they
But I could be
voted.
wrong about that.
They just turned them down in a board meeting. Huh?
Not to insert myself into this, but in a in the right zoning jurisdiction, you are allowed to have chickens. So in an agricultural. Yes,
Agricultural, yeah, not in town.
Not in town. In town, it was turned down.
So, all right, well, does anyone else have anything specific to the edits that Mr. Hill put forward?
And Joe, just for the record, I'm just trying to do my due diligence and protect the town. I mean, truthfully, I mean, I didn't want to spend an hour and a half Sunday night working on this, or an hour yesterday working on it and bugging Mr. Watson either. So, but I committed myself to do some due diligence.
And I appreciate you doing that. You and I probably are gonna come to a different conclusion on how we feel about it, but I that's in no way to disparage the effort that you put in, and I don't need to.
Okay, no, I'm just making a comment.
Can I just also have on
Yeah.
the coop, like restrictions or what was put in there from the staff report?
Mhm.
That is currently an active ordinance in another municipality. And when I spoke to their code enforcement, and I spoke to their, well, it was mainly their code enforcement. It was more so, to not only protect the predators getting in, but a majority of it was to protect the animal itself. As far as trying, again, to keep predators out, as well as from the elements like the weather and things of that nature. So that was, like I said, it's a current ordinance, and Beech Grove, that's their ordinance that they follow. And I felt it was something that not only could allow the homeowner to, keep their chickens safe, because we heard a lot about the predators and, attracting certain predators and that. So that's why it seems really restrictive, so.
Well, I guess on that point, no requirement that we put here allows the homeowner to keep them safe. The homeowner can build whatever his coop to Fort Knox standards, or he can build it to, the house made of straw standards. Those standards don't appear to me to allow anything. They appear to make it pretty much financially cost prohibitive for the vast majority of people to actually comply with it. Am I?
And I didn't go into, like I said, it's an active ordinance in another city, and so that's where, it seems to work for them. I don't know, I can't speak to Beech Grove's, socioeconomic status to know if it's affordable or who has them and who doesn't, or what are the workarounds to help those that, don't want to or can't invest a lot of money into having them. But again, it was just I talked to probably 20 or 25 different municipalities that do currently allow chickens. They're beyond what we allow currently, and just kind of took a synopsis of the different municipalities that I thought would make sense or could make sense. But I certainly understand like the cost, it could be cost prohibitive.
Thank you.
So if I could ask a question, so this version right here is the version with Carmen's initial edits,
I believe so.
correct?
Yes.
And some of the staff proposed changes.
Yes.
Okay. And so they're like, much of that is represented with red strike-throughs and blue language, and then there were two additional versions with potential suggested edits. Like I like Mr. Hill's section 21. It's one of the last edits. I think that seems to make sense. I can read it out loud. If a permit holder moves and leaves any chicken byproducts or chicken waste and or any potential contamination of the ground, the permit holder shall be responsible for the costs incurred to clean up and mitigate as necessary any and all such byproducts, waste, or contamination. That doesn't seem.
That was actually Mr. Watson.
Well, I
I
was just
suggest an idea,
fine-tuning your concept.
I want to give credit where credit's due.
And so, yeah, that's laying out what the expectation would be. I think that I definitely like to see section 21 added to the version under consideration.
Is that a motion to amend to add section 21 of Mr. Hill's edits to the version under consideration?
Hold on.
Or is there more? Sorry, I'm sorry.
And there is more. And then under your edit version, you added to a statement in line 17, in section 17. Regular inspections may occur, which I like, may occur to ensure that the property is in compliance with the section. The town may hire a third-party contractor to assist with inspections and/or other non-compliance matters. So I like these both, that it's may and not shall. But then your additional statement, they may do that, the town may hire a third party at homeowner's expense. I think that is like a very appropriate language that protects the town, and it leaves it where we don't have to, it's not required that all of this stuff is happening, but if it's becoming a problem or a nuisance, an avenue to address that is listed, and I think that's very thorough and appropriate. And so like, those are two corrections that I would definitely like to see adopted and amended into the version under consideration.
And can I ask on that sub 17 portion, the at homeowner's expense? Does that apply to non-compliance matters, or does that apply to that we do spot inspections and we just bill the inspectees?
I think it should apply to both.
Well, I think my reasoning there is if you were out of compliance or something like that.
And I would
and
fully
it-
support
and it-
that.
And it got out of hand, I don't think the town should have to bear the burden of cost.
Okay. So could, Stephen, would it be possible to, let's say we put costs of non-compliance matters are at homeowner's expense? Put a period after non-compliance matters, and then costs of non-compliance matters are at homeowner's expense. Would that make sense?
Yeah. I'm gonna make a note here, so I what we're saying.
And I don't know how you feel about that, Brad.
No, that is what I was getting at, so like a legalese on that, with the period being placed. I mean, I think the point would be that we're not looking for the town to must investigate continuously and must do these things, but they may do this, and so for areas of non-compliance, then there's an avenue that Mr. Hill pointed out where this can be addressed at the homeowner's expense. And it's not the town's responsibility. So assuming we're following and not causing an issue, then there's no expense. But if there's some sort of significant issue, then it can be addressed and it's not the town's responsibility financially to seek redress.
No, that makes complete sense to me.
All right, so how about we do this? For the period after the current non-compliance matters, and then continue with a new sentence that says, addressing non-compliance matters shall be at the permit holder's expense, period. Does that work?
That sounds right to me.
Makes the point.
So Brad, are you moving to make those two amendments to the draft we're considering?
I would like to make a motion to add both of those adjustments to the draft that we have under consideration.
We add sub 21 and add the additional sentence to sub 7. All right, there's a motion to amend the ordinance under consideration. Is there a second?
Can I, just clarification, so you're not gonna accept anything else in this? Of what
The first two that I've noticed and I wanted to immediately bring over.
so,
We're having additional dialogue.
so you're going to, which one are you,
So it would be going from your final edit, adding the language that you added in sub 21, as well as the slightly modified language of sub 17, adding that to the version that's under consideration. The version that's under consideration is the version that we voted on last time, which is this one. And so it's basically taking, and this doesn't mean that there can't be more amendments, but these are what Mr. Godecker has proposed. So there's a motion on the floor.
And just for clarity, if you don't mind, the entire last two sentences of section 17 that are in Z are all new as compared to what was approved on the first reading last month. So it's my understanding that moving to amend two sentences.
That is my understanding of Mr. Godecker's motion.
And the same would apply to the entirety of 21 to what was passed last month.
Yes.
That is correct.
So there's a motion to amend the draft that we're working on to add that language to sub 17 and add an entirely new sub 21. Is there a second to add those to our draft we're working on?
I'm sorry, I have a question. So are we gonna need to do a separate vote?
They're not gonna change.
Yeah.
Do it all?
Anything else?
Well, each member can make the motion to amend that they want, and that
Right.
motion needs to be voted.
Okay.
That's just to amend what we're considering,
Hey, Joe.
not to approve it. Yes.
Okay, so this is, I mean, I've got 4 documents up here.
Yep.
So you're not gonna change and have like a privacy fence?
Well,
You're not gonna,
Well,
you're gonna
just-
keep the 120 square feet for a chicken
just
coop?
hold up. It's not me. Any member of the body can make a motion to amend to add those things. So far, no one has.
Okay, well, okay,
Okay.
okay.
And I might just add, as, just to make sure we're all on the same page. The process that we're currently going through is just proposing amendments, and those amendments, and any vote on those amendments are in no way a vote on approving the final version. That will be a second step that we'll get to after we decide what amendments we want to make.
So this isn't approving the ordinance or anything. This is making one change, and then if anybody else wants to propose other changes, I'm gonna propose some changes, so.
Why can't we make this easy and do away with the one from last month? Everything from that plus is in the one that Stephen just handed us. We can vote to take out and amend to that one and not have to add to this one because it's all here plus this one.
Because I don't think, well, because no one's made that motion. Would be, I guess, the procedural answer is that no one has put forward that we should do that, and so we haven't voted on it. Now, I can tell you that I do not support most of the edits, so I wouldn't be voting in favor of it, but if someone wants to make a motion.
I'll make a motion to use my version.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all right. Actually, Mr.
There is a
Godecker
motion
has a
on
motion
the floor.
already on the floor, which has been seconded.
Who seconded it?
I believe Laura.
I think Laura had a question.
Oh, you got a question? Okay, there's not a second. So, hold on to your motion. Okay. Mr. Godecker, are you going to proceed on your motion or withdraw it for the moment?
My motion stands.
Okay, Mr. Godecker's motion stands. Is there a second to Mr. Godecker's
I'm sorry,
motion?
can you repeat that motion? I'm sorry, there's been a lot of.
Yeah.
Show her on your paper.
So my motion is to
21.
Add 21 and add this language.
Okay.
Okay, so Mr. Godecker has a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. All right. Vote by roll call, please, guys.
Laura Flurry,
Yes.
Brad Godecker,
yes.
David Hawkins,
No.
Richard Hill,
No,
Joe Saylor.
Yes.
Those amendments passed 3-2.
Okay. Now, I think you had a motion, Mr. Hill.
yeah, this is getting really confusing, so I'll make a motion to utilize what I redline, what Mr. Watson, then we make adjustments to this.
Okay, so your motion is to amend the ordinance that we are considering to the version that you redlined with Mr. Watson, correct? And we'll refer to that as the one with the comment boxes.
And I'll
Second.
suggest you incorporate the revised language in section 17 that we've already discussed. It's up to you. You're making a motion that might,
Make a motion to use this one for Mr. Watson with the comments, and the comments that he made or the adjustments he made.
All right, so Mr. Hill has moved to amend of the draft that we're considering to this one, for lack of a better way of putting it. I think Mr. Hawkins indicated he was going to second that.
Second.
Take this one as is what the current motion is, to take
Yes,
the one.
to revise, to basically accept all amendments as proposed by Mr. Hills, and then the additional one from 17.
The 2023-02 A, B, C. So they're confused.
So this is basically a motion
That's a good idea.
to amend to what we will informally refer to as C, which is Mr. Hill's markup.
See,
So there is a motion, there is a second. Roll by roll call, please, Deb.
Laura Fleury,
no,
Todd Godecker,
No.
David Hawkins,
Yes.
Richard Hill,
Yes?
Joe Saylor,
No.
Fails, 2-3.
All right. We are back to the version A as amended by Mr. Godecker's motion. Anyone else have any motions to amend? All right, I'm gonna make a motion to amend in sub 4. I'm going to move to amend to strike the sentence beginning with the coop, pen or chicken run must be screened with year-round landscaping, walls and fencing so as not to be visible from any public street, sidewalk, adjoining lot when viewed by an observation from 5 feet.
Which one are you looking at?
We're on A.
A,
A is the current version under consideration with the amendments as made by Mr. Godecker. So my motion is to strike that line.
Can you please,
clear, I want to make sure I'm looking at the right version.
Joe, can you please say what statement or section that is in again?
C4.
Can you read it again? Make sure I got the right one.
The coop, pen, or chicken run must be screened with year-round landscaping, walls, and/or fencing so as to not be visible from any public street, sidewalk, or adjoining lot and viewed from an observation height of 5 feet above grade.
Striking that sentence. The part that continues on, the coop pen or chicken run, are you keeping that?
Yes.
Okay.
The next sentence that I would be moving to in my amendment would be, I guess I have a real quick question for the town manager. The Indiana premises identification registration to the Board of Animal Health, can you give me a brief explanation of what that entails?
Certainly. So, the Board of Animal Health is a state, it's an entity that can help if there is an outbreak of any sort of, I'll just use the avian flu is one of the examples, that if everybody is registered through there and if there is an outbreak within the vicinity, they will properly notify those homeowners, as well as help to dispose of the animals if there's infected either within the flock or within the radius of the potential infected area.
Okay,
So
and is there a
it's pretty-
I'm sorry.
It's free to register.
Okay.
It's just a service that entity offers. And I believe all, but I know specifically rural counties, but I had noticed it there is a sign that requires them to register as well. And they also help with folks sometimes buy animals, poultry from out of state. And so it helps just to make sure that if you brought them in from out of state, they have to be tested prior to coming into the state of Indiana. So the service that they provide and keep track of where there are outbreaks. And like I said, do that proper notification, depending on the type of disease. It could go up to a 10-kilometer radius, which is 6.2 miles.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. All right, I'm gonna move to strike the 2 property depths or 660.
A,
That would be on E 1F, I believe, on page 6 of 11.
Joe, can I make a comment?
Sure.
You know, you folks made a comment about being too restrictive, and now you're gonna make it not protect the town. So you gotta find a balance, okay? You can't do this just on basis of your personal opinion because you want chickens.
Well,
You went on public record that said you would like to have chickens, okay? So you have a bias for this to remove some of these restrictions.
Richard,
and I have
that's a fairly grave accusation, and I'd caution you whether or not you want to throw that out. But
You made the comment, I didn't. You said you wanted chickens.
So now you're saying that I can't do what's best for the town. That's a pretty insulting thing to say.
Well, what I'm doing is what's best for the town.
Well,
Does it need addition and
respectfully, I'm
input?
in the middle of my motion, so we're gonna hold off and you can discuss it when I'm done with my motion.
Okay.
60. Can you read the words that you want?
Yes. Under sub F, strike out the 2 property depths or 660 and replace it with the original 200. And then under sub 4 on page 7, I believe that would be E4. My motion would be to strike 1 year as well as renewal and then put in an indefinite duration.
So they only have to do it once.
Unless they get in trouble and they get a pro. And then under sub,
No,
yep,
get caught up with you on that. F, is it F?
F1,
F1.
F,
And while you were talking about the duration, is that correct?
that's on page 7 under sub, I think it's E4.
E4, okay, gotcha. So we're going back to the indefinite duration, eliminate the 1 year? Is that
Correct. That would be my motion. And let me know when you're ready for me to continue.
I'm ready.
All right, on page 9, under sub 5, I believe that would be, F5. Whoever violates a provision of this section shall be fined. I would change it to shall be fined according to the general penalty section of the Whiteland Town Code. but leaving in addition, the town of Whiteland may refuse to grant or renew.
And what part are you striking?
So the sentence that begins with whoever and ends with $500 for each offense thereafter would be struck, and be replaced with whoever violates any provision of this section shall be punished under the general penalty provisions of the Whiteland Code.
Violates. So you're saying there's no penalty?
No, it's punishable by the general penalty provision, which provides for a penalty, I think, up to $2,500 per violation, but does not set a fixed liquidated penalty.
Can I ask you a question about your edit regarding the duration of the permit?
Yes.
So you're proposing it be indefinite and like no yearly check-ins to renew it or to make sure everything is still, because I kind of feel like maybe that should be something yearly just to ensure that
Well, I
they're
mean,
still in